Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 1482. Jeff will be mad. The Immortals led Carl and Dana to a small lobby surrounded by dorms in the back of the compound, where many other young Immortals were living. Most were gone about their daily tasks right now, but a few sensed new arrivals and came to poke their heads out. Clan elders, greetings. Are these more newly ascended mortals? They look quite young. Did they come from the immortal realms? One of the others, a woman with black cat ears poking from her hair, asked curiously. They came from a mortal world, and reached immortality within 20 years. The elder who had the aura of divinity on him replied. Oh, now that is curious. They're the fastest out of everyone from the mortal worlds. Jeff is going to be mad. The elder stared at her for a moment. Who is Jeff? You know, the one with the purple hair. The divine lightning dragon? His name isn't Jeff. But I can't pronounce his name in Draconic, the Catwoman replied with a casual shrug. From behind a door down the hall, the dragon in question roared out a name that sounded like an extended peal of lightning, combined with a furious roar. But somehow it also sounded like Jeff. See, it's not that hard, the elder chided. But cats were not meant to make that noise. To her credit, she did try, but the end came out sounding more like purring, and even the elder couldn't hold back a short burst of laughter. Alright, you can stick with the multi-species friendly nickname. It is probably less embarrassing than having you purr at him in public. Jeff came out of his room in purple robes, and did a double take as he saw Carl and Dana standing there. This pair is really odd. They're perfectly matched. Like exactly the same power level, like they're clones of each other. Not even identical twins have ever matched that, as far as I know. The Catwoman nodded. Ooh, good point. Jeff would know, too. He's been with us for quite a while now. Not his fault. A cruel punishment from his former sect crippled his potential and shattered his immortal spirit. Do you always share other people's most embarrassing secrets with strangers? Neighbors. The elders are moving them in next door. Does that mean you're married? Like a permanent couple? The cat asked. Dana nodded. Exactly like that. And soul bonded so our powers always match. It's a pleasure to meet you. You can call me Nyan. The cat replied with a cutesy pose. Is that your name? Or do you just want to see Dana say Nyan? Carl asked. The cat giggled, and the elder sighed. They're an odd bunch, but I suppose that you'll get along all right. Jeff shook his head. I highly doubt that. I give it 2 hours before some of the seniors come and try to mess with them to put them in their place. The entry duels are a rite of passage, and even if they can fight, they're going to end up against someone whose immortal spirit is nearly completely formed. I remember the first day after I reached immortality, and it was not a fun time. Nyan shrugged. I didn't have it too hard. You slept with half of the challengers. At the same time, no less. What can I say? I have a type. Dana laughed at the unrepentant cat. Well, that is one way to do it. But it's not going to work for me. Fortunately, I can fight, and I learned a skill to help form my immortal spirit in advance, so I probably won't be the easiest target for bullying for long. Sneaky fox. I should have known. Did you at least build a solid matrix in advance? Jeff asked. 48 points. It was considered exceptional for the mortal world that we came from, but it's likely nothing compared to immortals who have had centuries. Dana agreed. The dragon frowned. No, that's still pretty good. Most hit their limits somewhere near there, and their bodies can't support any more advancement. The Catwoman nodded. Ooh, good point. Jeff would know, too. He's been with us for quite a while now. Not his fault. A cruel punishment from his former sect crippled his potential and shattered his immortal spirit. Do you always share other people's most embarrassing secrets with strangers? Neighbors. The elders are moving them in next door. Does that mean you're married? Like a permanent couple? The cat asked. Dana nodded. Exactly like that. And soul bonded so our powers always match. It's a pleasure to meet you. You can call me Nyan. The cat replied with a cutesy pose. Is that your name? Or do you just want to see Dana say Nyan? Carl asked. The cat giggled, and the elder sighed. They're an odd bunch, but I suppose that you'll get along all right. Jeff shook his head. I highly doubt that. I give it 2 hours before some of the seniors come and try to mess with them to put them in their place. The entry duels are a rite of passage, and even if they can fight, they're going to end up against someone whose immortal spirit is nearly completely formed. I remember the first day after I reached immortality, and it was not a fun time. Nyan shrugged. I didn't have it too hard. You slept with half of the challengers. At the same time, no less. What can I say? I have a type. Dana laughed at the unrepentant cat. Well, that is one way to do it. But it's not going to work for me. Fortunately, I can fight, and I learned a skill to help form my immortal spirit in advance, so I probably won't be the easiest target for bullying for long. Sneaky fox. I should have known. Did you at least build a solid matrix in advance? Jeff asked. 48 points. It was considered exceptional for the mortal world that we came from, but it's likely nothing compared to immortals who have had centuries. Dana agreed. The dragon frowned. No, that's still pretty good. Most hit their limits. Somewhere near there, and their bodies can't support any more advancement. Once you become an immortal, it becomes many times more difficult to increase the size of your power matrix. The energy needed is simply more than the body can bear. What about Carl? I went for 72 points, and the formation is strong and stable. But like you said, the next step is too much. Unless I alter the way I have been progressing, I will be stuck here for quite some time. Well, this will be your room. We all share rooms as we're the lowest ranked and newest of the clan members. But being married, you would have wanted to share anyhow, so it works out fine for you. You can push the bunks together to share, and there is a ceiling formation on the rooms, set by the clan master. Nobody is getting through a supreme ranked privacy barrier, so you can train or do whatever sort of extracurricular activities you prefer in the dorm without anyone intruding. Just keep your key with you. Did you come from a system world? If so, you've likely got an inventory and not a storage ring. The key can go in either, but it's easier to find in your inventory. Nyan explained. I will leave them to you too. Just make sure that they come back out when the challengers come out. I don't want to hear screaming and banging all night. The elder insisted. Carl chuckled, and Nyan gave him a curious look. Did you think that you would get away with hiding? Or are you actually looking forward to the challenge? Definitely looking forward to the challenge. You see, I know a thing or two about fighting immortals, and if they're still trying to form their immortal spirit, I don't think that I will have too bad of a time. According to the system, immortal rank beasts weren't all that much stronger than their mortal counterparts, if you didn't count the damage reduction. It was only a 2- or 3-fold increase on what Carl would have expected from a mythic beast. That was something that he could deal with as long as the other immortals were on that level. Chapter 1483 Abraham Challenges. If you're waiting on the challenges, you can count yourself lucky. I will challenge you right now, with the elder's permission. A booming voice from behind them announced. The elder that felt like divine power shrugged. I don't see why not. Let the Carl fight you first. He's not a duel specialist, so it should be a faster learning experience. Carl examined the challenger, who didn't have a name tag with the system interface, so he was not a system user. But by his best guess, this should be a fully spirit rank immortal clan member, as he had asked permission to challenge and didn't just start a fight. In that case, I, Abraham of the New Home Merchant Clan, challenge you, Carl, initiate of the clan, to a ranking duel. He shouted in his best formal tone. In the distance, Carl heard others cheering, and in his head he heard Kara and Ray cheering. There really wasn't anyone against this fight, except Thor, who had been looking forward to a good nap with Tessa, not spectating a fight. But it would be a learning experience for him, as he had just advanced to mythic rank, and he hadn't been part of the immortal rank fights in the past. Where will we be doing the challenge? If we're going to go all out, it's going to need some space. Carl asked. Abraham smiled. I like your optimism, but you're not going to last long enough for it to matter. Carl smiled and patted him on the shoulder. I wouldn't count on that. It's best to treat every challenge as if it was an actual challenge. Besides, when I'm getting ready to fight, I'm significantly larger than I am right now. The people that they passed all gave him curious looks, wondering what Carl turned into when he wanted to fight. If he was a berserker, it could be all sorts of fun stuff. But his system wasn't compatible with most of theirs, and they couldn't see his details, so it was up to their best guess as to what sort of fighting style he was going to employ. Nyan rushed ahead of them, cheering and shouting. Get your bets in, get your bets in. Abraham versus the new guy Carl. Who will win? How long will the fight last? Will the Carl's wife leave in tears or over Abraham's body? Abraham growled at her, and Nyan made a mocking swipe at him with her hand curled into a paw. The elders led them to a massive courtyard, and Carl realized that they had used actual spatial magic to expand it, not an illusionary domain the way that he built things like the trial grounds. He was going to have to study that later. Opal would love it. The two of them stepped to the center of the ring, and Abraham shifted, revealing a black-winged demonic form that Carl knew was a skill related to his class. not related to any sort of actual demonic bloodline. Carl shifted with Warbeast into an armored world dragon, then waited a moment and used Behemoth to increase his size, so that everyone could see that it was a separate skill. Abraham laughed at the spectacle, amused that the new immortal thought that strength and size were related. Many new immortals made that mistake, but he would teach his overgrown dragon a thing or two about cultivation today. Or so he thought. Blade Explosion sent 100 attacks at Carl at the same time, which caused Eternal Lightning to flare with power as Carl poured mana into it. But the barrier did not fall, and a casual swipe of Carl's claw sent 5 Chaos Blasts at the immortal. The arena went dark as the explosions absorbed the light, and then impossibly bright as the explosion detonated in impossible colors that should not exist in reality. Abraham was flung backward across the arena, looking stunned as his sword shattered in his hands, destroyed by the blasts as he parried. What the hell was that? Someone in the crowd shouted, and then a fresh round of betting began. Carl smiled and called out the bodyguards, his trusty pair of lamia, to assist him. Ooh, a summoning specialist. Abe is fucked now. Nyan laughed as she continued to accept bets. In your dreams, cat. Abe snarled as he layered defensive skills on himself and activated a series of items. Carl smiled, and in his mind Kara began to laugh. Yes, do it. Show off now, and they won't bully our Dana mage later. Tion cheered. Are you not supposed to be on my team? Her ears are cuter. Carl's laughter as he activated Nullify on all 10 of his claws terrified the spectators a little. The new immortal was insane, cheerfully fighting someone a full advancement ahead of him. They could all tell that he hadn't even started to build his immortal spirit yet, but he was simply overpowered. It had to be related to that transformation skill, or the fact that he was a world dragon avatar. But it was still ridiculous. Carl smashed both paws down on the demonic challenger, pinning him to the ground for a moment before Abraham threw Carl's claws backward, and scrambled clear with a movement skill. Again, Chaos Blast exploded against him. But this time, he didn't have any defenses up, thanks to Nullify. His robes shredded, and one of his arms morphed into a tentacle, which began to attack his own face, while large portions of his flesh were disintegrated. Halt the battle. Crippling damage has been done to Abraham. The winner by technical knockout is Carl. The elder declared, his voice booming through the arena. Abraham didn't even try to contest the decision. He was too busy trying to stop his own arm from attacking him. Carl transforms back to human shape and bowed to the crowd. I believe that there is a custom for newcomers that we are challenged until we have a ranking within the clan's acolytes. If the next challenger is ready, I have already recovered the mana and stamina that I used during the fight. Carl called. The other acolytes frowned, then turned to each other. The newbie was still too arrogant. They were going to have to teach him a proper lesson before he started to look down on them. Chapter 1484 Abraham loses. The rest of the new immortals in the clan looked at Carl, and then at the 2 Lamia bodyguards who hadn't even had to do anything in the last fight. Who wanted to fight that? Let the seniors teach him were better suited to it. Lesson in humility A man in what looked like a martial arts training outfit stepped forward and bowed to the elders. If I may, I believe that there is something unique about the physique of this recruit. He may be beyond the abilities of most to handle in a duel, thanks to his unique constitution. He requested. The elder frowned, and then nodded. I suspect that you are right. We failed to ask the immortals of his mortal world about his status there before we requested that he leave. However, we do know that he withstood a 9-volley tribulation, and made it past the 6th without taking any damage. His power is surely not to be underestimated. I will grant you permission for this duel. Carl shrugged, and shifted into greater beast form, opting for the comfort of the cat demon form instead of the massive bulk of the world dragon. The challenger smiled. So, you have multiple transformation spells? That will make things interesting. Carl nodded. It does. I have a form for most situations. Then he took out the Sword of Champions and equipped the Haint Claw. The challenger drew a pair of short blades and charged at Carl, who barely withstood the force of the attack, and slid backward a few meters before the Lamia bodyguards intervened and attacked the challenger from the sides. With the 3 of them all fighting at once, the speed difference was only enough to keep him in the fight, and his momentum was lost. But he was not a young immortal, and he knew more than just how to launch a surprise attack. Shadow Step or an equivalent skill brought the attacker right behind Carl, who rolled to mitigate the damage, and came up on the other side of the bodyguards again. This time a little closer so they could help defend his back. Ren tore an arc through the air as Carl counterattacked, and the immortal smoothly dodged under it, twisting in an impossible fashion, only to have his forward motion stopped by a bodyguard. Again he spun, dancing through the air and landing a hit on the back of the Lamia that failed to get through the Eternal Lightning barrier. Oh, he can use that barrier on his teammates. That's a truly nasty skill in a duel. One of the spectators mumbled. You have no idea. Duels aren't his specialty. He's more like a mobile artillery battery. Dana replied quietly. And you? The immortal probed, knowing that she would be tested later, even if it wasn't that day. I am a duel specialist. Dana replied simply. She was also much faster than Carl, thanks to her class skills. With her golems and auto parry, she wouldn't be on the losing side of the blade fight in this match. Carl backed away again, unable to come out on top of the exchange. Then, he used earth manipulation to turn the arena floor into soft sand, causing the challenger to stumble for half a step before he activated a movement skill and began to laugh as he walked on air. Oh, I see now. You have some dirty tricks. What is that, quicksand? He asked, circling warily. Just regular sand. But I can do a swamp if you prefer. Carl taunted. He wanted to keep back the best of his skills, as these immortals loved to challenge each other and test their skills, from what he could tell. If he gave everything away on the first day, it would be too easy for them to decipher a way to get past his weaknesses. Once they had the basics of his fighting style figured out, then it would get progressively easier for them to defeat him in a duel. But this challenger was relentless, and even with the assistance of the bodyguards, he couldn't get a proper hit in. It was time to change tactics. A dozen hellstorm vortexes formed in the arena, each with its own suction force that would pull the fighter off balance as he charged, and turned the entire area into a movement hazard. Shadow Step took the attacker clear of the closest vortex, and Carl added a firestorm to the mix, filling the air with burning embers of ghost fire. That turned the expression on the immortal's face serious. I see what they mean, you're not a duel specialist. He joked as he darted to one side and decapitated a bodyguard with a skill that left him flushed with exertion. Exactly. Forgive my messy techniques, but I couldn't just do nothing. The immortal smiled as he surrounded himself in a layer of energy, using pure projected power instead of a defined skill as a barrier. That was a fascinating technique, and Carl wondered if he could learn to do it as well. It didn't seem to need the system's assistance, but it might take quite a bit of training, if it wasn't as simple as it looked from the outside. It did do the job, though. The immortal wasn't being damaged by the storm, and he was agile enough that the vortexes were only a minor nuisance to him. But Carl knew one thing that the immortal had not considered when he put up his barrier. He had incredibly high regeneration rates, and this battle wouldn't even strain him at this level, unless he changed techniques. 10 chaos blasts formed around his hands, and Carl sent them hurling out into the arena, while 10 more formed in the hidden spots behind the vortexes. 10 from his hands, 10 not, and he had some hope that he could surprise the immortal and force him to take a severe hit. But the challenger didn't dodge. He exploded with power, wiping away the firestorm and most of the vortexes, just as the chaos blasts exploded. The one behind him sent his body flying into the arms of Alamia, who did its best to impale the seemingly helpless attacker, only to find that his attack speed was still too high to succeed, even in this state. But it did allow her to grab his body once they collided, and that let Carl move in to strike with a chaos blast-imbued blade. The immortal vanished again, and Carl swept his blade through where the man was, just to be certain it wasn't an invisibility spell, then spotted him on the far side of the arena. This was not going to be a short fight. Chapter 1485 by attrition. Carl fired a wave of chaos blast behind him and laughed as he heard the immortal swear. He had gone for the most predictable attack point in Carl's blind spot. But Carl didn't have to look to hurl skills, he just had to aim, and he had the beasts for that. Carl felt the immortal's life force waver as his power surged, and a spike of pure power hit the Sword of Champions as Carl turned to parry. The impact was so great that the eternal lightning barrier shattered, and his hands went slightly numb. But the look on the immortal's face said that this was not the expected outcome. Dum 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 dum. Kara chanted, doing her best impression of dramatic drum music. Ooh, we need a unique intro. A personal theme song for entering duels. Tian noted. Opal? We need your assistance. Carl needs theme music. Dana tried hard not to laugh as a dozen brutal impacts overwhelmed Carl's skills, but failed to do more than scratch his armor, which regenerated along with his body. What sort of insane fight is this? Outranked by nearly 2 stages, and he's not even taking damage. One of the clan members muttered, distracting Dana from the beast's antics. He's taking damage, just not faster than he can regenerate. She was cut off when a man in the back began to scream. That's not a player, that's a world boss. They brought a world boss into the compound. Absolute mad lads. Cringe fail, but total YOLO moment. Everyone turned to stare at him, and the elder sighed. Forgive him, he's a moron. His world system summoned common rank humans from a world without magic and gave them a system, but it did something to their brains. No, I'm not delusional. Look at the nameplate. The nameplate came up when he took damage. That is totally 100% a world boss. Now that he mentioned it, the clan members who came from worlds with a system, which was almost all of them, opened their interfaces to examine Carl. And they all found the same thing. Does his name look odd to you? The elder asked Dana, his tone insistent as he finally realized that there might be an issue. Yes, and it has for some time. He's got what our world calls an epic grade constitution, a skill above epic grade that improves his durability to that of a dungeon boss. Honestly, if they're not super overpowered, I don't think that any of the immortals below Ascended are going to be able to solo him. Solo fighting raid bosses just isn't a thing that happens in our world. I don't know much about the immortal realms, but I do know that 10-on-1 at his own rank was a fair fight at Mythic. The elder sighed, and motioned for 2 more immortals to go down to the sand. Help out. We need to see what the Carl can do, or we can't properly place him within the clan. Carl laughed as he realized that the fight was about to go 3-on-3, if you counted his bodyguards, and he brought the Eternal Lightning Barrier back up to give his armor time to regenerate. I hope that you can keep that level of output up. If not, you're going to lose by exhaustion. The immortal joked. Ask anyone. Stamina is not my weak point. Carl wiggled his eyebrows suggestively, and the immortal hit him with another flurry of overpowered attacks that tore through his armor and his barrier. Note to self, he does not take jokes well. Or you're not his type. The bodyguards shifted to engage the new arrivals, fending off the first few seconds of cooperation with rend attacks, before moving into close combat, where their serpentine bodies gave them a distinct reach advantage. That brought the fight back to 1-on-1, but with the immortal able to fully focus on Carl, the damage was beginning to stack up, and he couldn't keep his barriers up. However, neither could the challenger, and Chaos Blast had left hundreds of small wounds on his body that he was struggling to regenerate. Chaos wasn't the fundamental rule that Carl had fully comprehended, but he was very close, and when it was layered on top of the rule of mana manipulation, it caused the energy in the target's body to go even more haywire than usual. Their battle of attrition was tilting in Carl's favor, and while he had managed to summon the Lamia back twice in a row, the third time that they were defeated, the immortals had learned the trick to blocking the summoning, and then Carl had to fight all 3 at once, which went predictably poorly for him. Attacked from 3 sides at once, Carl could only parry one, and had to rely on his barrier or targeting blindly with skills to stop the others. It was burning through mana at an astounding rate, but more of the attacks were getting through than he was blocking. All of the immortals had worked and trained together, to the point that they could at least attack without overlapping skills or causing interference. But the real advantage was that they were treating him like an actual dungeon boss, where they conserved energy and focused on burning down his health and energy, while stopping him from using his big skills. It was a highly frustrating tactic. Carl thought about locking down the mana in the area using mana suppression with the fundamental rule of mana manipulation. But he couldn't win a sword fight with the 3 of them, even if he was using skills. It would just take them a little longer to overcome his restrictions. So he held back to the level he was fighting at, and let them wear him out, granting the victory when a strike finally knocked the blade from his hand and sent him sprawling to the ground. Winner is not Carl. Excellent placement match, young immortal. We will discuss your rank within the clan this evening. Now, Miss Dana, please take his place in the challenge arena. Chapter 1486 Checkup. Once Carl and his opponents had caught their breath, they left the stage arm in arm, headed for the triage tent. Protocol, you see. Not everyone has the regeneration rate of a troll on amphetamines. Some of us actually get injured and stay that way. Especially when someone starts throwing around the fundamental rule of chaos like it's no big deal. Every rule has its upsides and downsides. I know a girl who mastered the rule of chaos and still had her face disfigured by an order element beast. Carl shrugged. With a perfected rule of chaos? The immortal asked, confused as to what could have happened. She tried to test a demigod, while it was still alive. The immortal choked, and then stumbled over his feet, only narrowly escaping embarrassment. She did what now? I mean, to know your rule, you must live your rule. But that's a bit too chaotic. She will advance soon, and join us here in the immortal worlds. I'm sure you'll get to meet her at some point. She's really quite sweet once you get to know her. For a moment, the immortal wondered what someone who had fully embraced chaos would be like, then decided to never think of that again, for the sake of his own sanity. So, you changed the focus of your studies from chaos to mana manipulation? He asked instead. Not exactly. I'm still working on chaos, and I touched on the rule of fire as well. It's a unique aspect of my class. There are others that I have a bit of insight into, but far from enough to make a complete rule. Carl offered as they reached the tent. Ray had mastered too, but none of the others were at all inclined to such a feat. Not even the Dana mage was after 2 fundamental rules. You come in first. I've got questions. The medic, a white dragon cleric, demanded. If you have blue dragons here, you should probably call them too. They get mad if they have to find out secondhand. The medic shrugged. They're not particularly interested in staying in a money-focused merchant clan. We rarely come across new knowledge, as we focus on things that we already know are profitable. They're more likely to end up in one of the crafting, research, or even the cultivation groups. Those at least come across profound insights now and then. But that's a matter for later. First, how did you get a physique that can regenerate like that? Is it an epic grade skill? Second, your durability, is it also a skill? Or is it a side effect of the regeneration ability? Carl pulled out a chair and took a seat. There is a long version and a short version. I will start with the shorter version. I had an encounter in a divine relic that granted me a very unique constitution. It maximized my stats at every level. Then, I had another fortunate encounter with a skill book that granted me an epic physique. The two combined to give me an absolutely massive amount of durability. That, combined with limited invulnerability, which reduces damage taken by a flat 10% of my health, and a regeneration skill that is also a percentage of my total health per second, and I became a living dungeon boss. The dragon nodded slowly as he made notes. All right, put that way, it makes sense. It's horrifically broken, but it at least makes sense. Are there any other survivability-related skills I should know about as the clan's primary healer? Well, I have barriers, more barriers. Night Haunter to make me incorporeal, a backup regeneration skill. Then there is Behemoth, which I used in dragon form, that increases my health along with my size. There are probably more skills that I'm not thinking of right now that are directly related to making me hard to kill, but those are the essentials. In his space, Leo laughed. The Carl would have made an excellent turtle if he had been born with a shell. He certainly had the right attitude toward defensive skills. Getting a tank class is a good thing. There are dungeons in this world, the same as in your world, and the teams always need another tank. One of the other immortals suggested. Yeah, you could join our team. All we need is a tank and we can go much more often. Gaining experience from the dungeons is more fun than meditation or gathering materials for alchemy pills. Another agreed. I'm not a tank though. I'm really survivable, but I don't have any skills for actually being the main tank in a dungeon. I can gather monsters decently and I can take a hit, but I have no skills for shield use, evasion, or even an advanced combat style. I'm more of a really durable ranger. Carl joked. At what point does it stop mattering? If you're durable enough, you don't really need skills to work as the main tank in most trials. You just need to be able to gather the monsters to you, and you can do that with your area skills. I will keep it in mind, but I normally go with my wife. We're soul bonded, so it's better if we keep our power levels growing at the same rate. If not, the imbalance can cause issues for what the other one is doing. Precision work is difficult when your partner is in a dungeon building strength. If they get too good of an opportunity, it can even cause a crafting attempt to fail. The white dragon smiled. You know, it's not often that you see followers of the dragon gods so devoted to each other. It's a wonderful thing to know that there are still couples so devoted to their eternal love that they would rather die than betray one another. Especially here, where eternity has a rather different connotation than in the mortal realms. The immortal who had started the challenge nodded excitedly. It's like a romantic drama play. The gallant hero willing to die instead of letting his true love be stolen away. Carl chuckled. Well, someone would die for that, but I suspect it wouldn't be me. Not when you can beat half a raid team to death with your bare hands. The healer agreed. You're good to go watch the fight, by the way. Chapter 1487 explained to the staff. There was a short delay before Dana's fight. While the elders returned the arena to its base configuration, and the unranked immortals placed their wagers on what the fighting style and power level of Dana was going to be. They knew that her actual advancement was tied to Carl's, but his skills made him ridiculously difficult to defeat. If she had a somewhat normal skill set, fighting her might not be such a terrible time. They had no idea what they were getting themselves into. Would you like to make a request for your opponent? The elder asked when he saw that the last contestants were coming back out of the healer's tent. Just make sure that they are a combat specialist. I am a mystic blade master by class, a battle mage. Dana explained. That excited the warriors. It wasn't often that a mage was anything other than squishy in a duel. If she was a mage who knew how to use a sword, she might be worthy of becoming part of their friend group. Assuming that she was somewhere near the same level as her husband. Because even without an immortal spirit, there was no doubt that Carl was not among the ranks of common immortals. Are you going to do something dirty like summon golems? One of the warriors asked. Undoubtedly. I am a mage after all. If I didn't at least summon a couple of golems and cast a fireball, they would take away my union card. The warrior laughed and hopped down into the ring. All right, let's get this started. Dana smiled and summoned 2 epic golems, in the form of the Dark Elven Kings, into the arena with them, while the crowd began to boo and jeer her lack of sportsmanship. It was mostly good-natured, but there was some jealousy there from other newly ascended immortals who were seeing their chances at moving up the ranks vanishing. How were they supposed to get out of the bottom tier when people like that existed? We might need 3 men to deal with this woman as well. Feels a bit odd to say that, since the phrase is usually reserved for succubi. One of the senior members noted in a dry tone. The elder rolled his eyes. Surely it won't be. No, you are right. Send 2 more to the arena floor. If not, that pair of elves is going to chop someone up. The 2 kings turned to stare at him with the utmost of disdain. They might have never fought at the immortal rank before, but they were kings of the dark elves, epic golems summoned by the Dana mage. A single common immortal warrior was not going to be enough to stop them from doing whatever they wanted. 2 more men joined the fight, and Dana gave the signal for them to begin. The warriors moved, activating skills faster than most eyes could follow. But the kings were already gone, and 2 pommels hit 2 skulls at exactly the same instant, before they turned on the remaining fighter and drove him to the ground in a single series of attacks. Halt! You 3 head to the tent. We need a better team to fight those things. We didn't even get to see the mage in action. Yes, the golems are a sure sign of her power, but we still need to rank her combat skills. The elder insisted. I can dismiss them or have them stand aside. If you just want to know how my blade skills are, it's easy enough to do now that everyone understands the power of the epic golems. Saying that they understood was a stretch. They had seen them in action for less than a second. But for the immortals, that was enough to get a rough idea of their base power level. Do it. It will save us all some time. Dana nodded to the elves, who moved to the edge of the arena, confident that they could rescue Dana if something went wrong. A gesture from the elders sent another immortal into the arena. This one looked like he had seen more than his fair share of combat, middle-aged with leathery skin toughened by exposure. But here in the immortal realm, that didn't necessarily mean anything. Her senses told her the man was close to 1,000 years old, and that was much more relevant to his skills than his appearance. He didn't hesitate, and drew his blade to launch directly into a flurry of attacks that sent sparks flying into the air as Dana's sword deftly parried every strike. The sound of the blades echoing through the arena as everyone else fell silent. With a skill activation, the immortal increased his speed, and Dana's sword became a blur, with auto-parry, stopping his assault short of the target every time, while Dana adapted to his fighting style. Using Warbeast only made her a more furry version of her foxkin self, but it gave her the same epic constitution that Carl enjoyed. However, it was focused on speed and agility. Dana settled into a rhythm as she learned the combat style of her opponent, and then began adding arcane element power to her attacks, based on the arcane missile's spell, but altered with her understanding of mana manipulation. The result caused an increase in the sparks flying around the arena, as well as a lot of lingering mana that she could use as a secondary attack, without her opponent immediately noticing that she was building up a skill. Finally getting a chance to make a move, Dana activated a movement skill intending to walk through the air, only to realize that as an immortal that was no longer necessary. She could fly without a skill. That gave the fight a whole new dimension, and she began drawing her opponent up off the ground, where the lingering mana could gather in every direction, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Chapter 1488 Dana's Duel. The old immortal nearly let out a sigh of satisfaction when he realized what Dana was doing. He could feel the mana in the air, and her control over it, keeping it from dispersing. Her fighting style was both elegant and deadly, incredibly agile unlike her partner, who was simply an impenetrable bulwark that nobody could cut their way through. Her agile method was much more to his liking, and he decided that if she was willing, he would take her in as a disciple, to teach her an extended set of blade skills. Not that her ability was lacking, but her style was limited, clearly gained from her system, and not honed with centuries of experience. That was a difference that she was about to learn the hard way. Just as Dana prepared to spring the trap, the mana suddenly left her control, and her opponent's fighting style changed completely, putting her on the defensive again, struggling to keep up with his attacks. Your defensive skill is incredible, but it relies on your ability to block with your blade. When I attack from more directions, what do you do? He asked, less concerned with her ranking than his own curiosity. Dana smiled and activated Blade Storm, creating 10 more blades surrounding her in a defensive formation. The immortal laughed as he caused 1,000 points of light to streak toward her like lasers, forcing Dana to erect a barrier to defend against the vast majority of them, which the blades couldn't deflect. But once she realized that, she put the Blade Storm on offense while she defended manually with area attacks, and forced her opponent to defend against a dozen attacks at a time. Oh, you can activate skills through any of the blades. That is a lovely trick. Dana gave what looked like a graceful bow, but was actually a kick, intending to put him off balance in the air and make him miss a block. There was no spare breath for her to retort, only more attacks as she struggled to keep up with his power. Your endurance and durability are incredible as well. And your healing, I would say trollish regeneration or an equivalent with an epic grade transformation. Yes, you will fit in very well here. Dana laughed as he relented a little on his attacks, not wanting the battle to end. You should see what happens when the two of us work together. The immortal paused. That's actually terrifying. His bodyguards, your dark elves, plus the two of you? That's an entire trial challenge in one spot. Elders, I think that it is safe to put them both at the top of the Spirit Immortal rankings. Realistically, they could fight for a spot in the Void Immortal rankings, but the clan separated them by actual progression, so the highest spots they could hold were at the top of the Spirit Immortal chart. The elders nodded. Is there anyone who wishes to contest that ranking? He waited for a moment, then activated a tablet-shaped device that updated their internal rankings. Welcome to the top of the new home merchant clan's internal rankings for newcomers. I am certain that we will have many interesting days ahead of us, the elder announced. Wait, who is at the top? One of the others asked. Carl gestured at Dana. When the wife wants the top, she gets it. Dana smirked and wiggled her ears, while a number of the younger immortals hooped and catcalled. Immortal with a sense of humor, and at least a little bit of humility. Not a bad combination. If you want to rest for the evening, you can return to your room. If not, we will have a group dinner in a little over an hour. The clan kitchen is open 3 times a day, every day. There is no need to cook for yourself if you don't want to. That's what we've got mortals for. The elder explained. I think that we will socialize for a while. Not having a name displayed for everyone that we meet is a big adjustment, as I never bothered to memorize anyone's name before. Carl explained. The other clan members snickered at his admission. But in a world where you could just look and see anyone's name, you didn't have to ask strangers who they were, or even remember casual acquaintances' names. It was like remembering the address of a location near your house. Nobody bothered because they knew where it was. Jeff and Nyan came over together, and the divine lightning dragon greeted them with a friendly nod. You will have to work on that. Some of the systems should be compatible, as there are members who can see your names and basic information. However, many are either not system users or come from an incompatible system. That's not a normal situation, by the way. Most of the immortals in this world were born in this world, and they all have the same system which was created by the World Dragon. So, outside the clan, you shouldn't have too many issues finding the names of the locals. Come to dinner, and I will introduce you to more of the newbies. I mean, you're technically at the top of the spirit charts, but you're still new, so I think counts. Either way, you should come meet more people than just your next-door neighbors. Nyan added. Dana patted the catgirl on the head. Only if you tell me your actual name. Jeff laughed and poked her in the side. Yeah. Tell them your actual name. Nyan stuck out her tongue at him. You see, my world is the same as the morons. We were summoned to that world thinking it was part of a game. So, we picked gamer nicknames and the system made them our real names with no option to change. And your name is? Dana pressed. Pretty Kitty. Dana's smile grew even wider. Oh, I think I know the perfect friend for you. She might even guess your name without asking. But she's still mortal, so we have a bit of time before you meet. I like it, though. Pretty Kitty, and Nyan for short. Dana made the same cute pose that Nyan had the first time that she introduced herself, and the cat giggled. I knew that it would be cuter when you do it. Foxes have that special charm. Skill. Chapter 1489 Dining Hall. Nyan led them down the hallway toward what Carl assumed was the dining hall, but not without giving them some introductory knowledge. Alright, you will have it much easier than usual with the clan. You actually won your first ranking duel, which is highly uncommon. Power is the only thing that anyone respects here, and you've got it. However, there are still some divides that you will see. First up, we have mortal servants in the kitchens. Do not speak to them, it's against the rules for them to speak in public. You can make them bark or meow if it pleases you, but no speaking. Next, the true-born immortals are pretty snobbish. We don't have a lot of them around presently, but you'll notice the cliques right away. You can try to talk to them if you want. You're powerful and some of them are beneath you on the rankings. But it will almost certainly cause a fight, where they will call in one of their stronger friends to fight on their behalf. You're pretty strong, but a lot of the older trueborn are already ascendant. That's where they usually get bottlenecked. The start of ascension is apparently fairly easy, but once you get past that, it gets harder. Maybe 1 in 1,000 immortals who ascends can actually make it to peak immortal, and few of them live long enough to become supreme. The closer they get, the more likely they are to be attacked by an actual supreme to stop them from becoming a threat. For that reason, you don't see many peak immortals. They either die, or they retreat to a pocket dimension to finish their cultivation and reach the supreme rank. The fact that we have 2 peak immortals here in the clan hall is great security for that reason. If anyone comes for them, they've got backup. Making friends is important for that reason. Here, we're all nominally on the same team. But outside? That's a whole other thing. I will give you a book with the markings of the clans and sects that we're allied to. You'll need to memorize that before you go outside. Other than that, I just need to repeat that you can't get all huffy and start fights over the staff. Seriously, the trueborn especially will get cranky if you stand up for them. If you like one, you can take them as a pet and help them cultivate. Carl gave her a startled look, and Nyan nodded. Yep, I was brought here as a mortal and kept as a pet until I ascended. But it's not bad, the food is pretty good, and even with the whole status thing, not everyone is an asshole. Carl winked at Dana, who laughed. Oh, you shouldn't have told him that. He's totally going to adopt someone fluffy, and then give her to the Chaos Badger as a new friend. Chaos Badger? Do you know a Chaos Badger? I wouldn't tell people that. They're trouble. Dana patted the cat girl on the head, amused by the way that she seemed to melt under the affection. She's a bonded partner of Carl's, and she's in the process of advancing right now. But she will come to visit everyone eventually. Nyan just sighed and led them toward the dining hall, while Jeff tried not to laugh at her. Jeff pushed the door open, while Nyan led them inside, and the room fell silent with one final clatter of cutlery on dishes. All the immortals were waiting to see how Carl and Dana would react, what clique they would go join, and how they would treat the other awakened immortals. Apparent age meant nothing here, and most who had hundreds or thousands of years of life behind them struggled to adapt to being treated as newbies. Bunnies, Dana whispered, as she saw the serving staff scurrying about. Lotus is going to go insane. Carl agreed, then turned to face the room. Good afternoon, everyone, he announced. Dana waved to a few friendly faces, while the immortals tried to decipher Carl's greeting. Was he being sarcastic? Was he actually angry about the duels, though they were an important tradition? Or did he enjoy the fight and honestly want to make friends? If that was the case, he would definitely fall into the weirdo category. Did he not know that they were competitors for extremely scarce resources and opportunities? Or did he simply not see them as a threat, and as such saw no reason not to be friendly with them? They were thinking much more deeply about the sentence than Carl was. He had just given them the standard issue politically polite greeting. The room remained silent, much to Carl's dismay. He had been hoping for at least one or two polite greetings in return, but apparently that wasn't the tradition here. But tradition wasn't the cause of the silence. It was the fact that he was spouting confusing doublespeak while standing next to an absolutely stunning foxkin immortal and absently petting one of the bunny servants. Wasn't that just too much? Far too enviable. The bunnies usually ran away when anyone got close to them because so many of the immortals were mean to them. But his very first day here, he got to pet fluffy bunny ears. The server was just as shocked as everyone else. She had come over to get his order, and suddenly, he was stroking her ears just right and her mind had gone blank. That had to be a system skill. But who had a skill for head pats? He was a dangerous person, but he felt so safe and friendly that she couldn't stay away. Dana ended up rescuing her so that she could go back to work. Carl didn't even notice that he had her enthralled. It was just an instinctive action and the power of his class skills overriding the bunny's survival instincts. Let's find a seat. There are plenty of open spots, Jeff suggested. The looks that he got from the other immortals were a mix of disgust and pity. He was a born immortal, being a divine lightning dragon. However, he was crippled and stuck near the bottom of the power rankings for life. It was a strange place to be, but his reputation was still better than Nyan's, even if she was much more popular. Chapter 1490 to choose a table. Picking a table was also a test, Carl decided. There were cliques seated all over the room, and a few spaces that were clearly reserved for someone else who hadn't arrived yet. If he picked those, it would offend whoever usually sat there. But anywhere else he sat would be aligning himself with one of the cliques, or going the loner route and sitting in the corner, between the garbage bins and the kitchen entrance. Why was there even a table there, anyhow? Some sort of bullying issue? Then he spotted the perfect table. They didn't all have system interfaces that he could see, but Carl identified a number of dragon god clerics, a few beastkin and dragon species warriors, and what looked like a berserker woman in a fur bikini that would make Ophelia laugh. A pale imitation of a bear totem berserker. They also had plenty of space left at the table, and they didn't panic when he turned in their direction. Do you mind? He asked the most powerful at the table, a divine fire dragon warrior. Not at all. Come and sit, I will introduce you to the others, Avatar. A few of the other tables looked disappointed but understanding. If Carl was an avatar of one of the dragon gods, it only made sense that he went to them first. What god's avatar were you in the mortal world? A wrath demon man asked as Carl passed by his table. The world dragon. I gained the status around totem rank, and kept it through my advancements. That surprised more than a few of the immortals. But it explained a fair bit about his fighting style. That massive dragon form wasn't just his innate form, it was enlarged by his status as avatar of the world dragon. It was actually more to do with Thor's influence and his epic great innate physique, but Carl's dragon form was huge even without using behemoth. The divine fire dragon gestured to himself. I am Jean, head of the clan's security force training. That is Alicia, don't mind her sense of fashion. She's part fire elemental, and radiates too much heat to be comfortable in full clothing. Or so she says. Then there is Brother Chin, the white dragon, and Argoth, the werewolf. Chin does most of our healing for group outings, and Argoth is our main tank when we're working in a team. The clan doesn't split us up by ranks because trials in the immortal realms usually have areas of different difficulties, as well as internal restrictions. So, if you want to maximize your chances of success, you need to bring seniors and juniors together. It's a bit ironic, considering how poorly immortals work together. Dana smiled. I'm willing to wager that those outings with generous seniors are actually a rather significant cause of death for new immortals. Jean chuckled grimly. Not just new ones. The dragon clerics are a pretty honest bunch by local standards. But even then, watch your back outside. And your front. Everything in this world is deadly if you let your guard down, especially in a trial where resources are at stake. The new home merchant clan is mostly foundlings. Immortals who were run out of their home sect, mortals who just awakened, and such. The sort that will smile in your face, then stab you in the back to steal an opportunity. He was looking across the room, clearly meaning someone in particular who had offended him. Dana nodded. I get it now. On the surface, everyone is an ally. Part of the same clan on the same team. But when nobody is looking, most won't hesitate to kill and steal for the slightest chance of getting ahead. Not as naive as you seemed. That is the way of the immortal realms. Also, you're both restraining your aura. Don't do that here. There is no need, and it's a sign of weakness and submission. Nyan does it, but that's more of a kink on her part. Has anyone mentioned that the system in the world she came from did strange things to their minds? Or perhaps it only summoned insane people to start with. Either way, her and the moron are both oddballs. Nyan just shrugged and accepted her dinner from the servants, who placed all 4 plates in under a second, then seemed to vanish into the background. Does he not have name? Carl asked. Yes, but we don't use it. It only makes him seem dumber. That was an accomplishment if his nickname was already that bad. Nyan giggled as she looked over at him. They had come from the same world, so she could see his name with her system interface. It was obviously bad, worse than Pretty Kitty, or she wouldn't be laughing at him. What's with the trash can table? Dana asked, unable to restrain her curiosity any longer. Oh, that's the reserve table for the last place on the spirit rankings. It encourages them to get better, or something, Jean replied, waving dismissively. The bottom of the rankings don't last long. The others usually offer them opportunities to get stronger, and they do something suicidally stupid. Alicia elaborated. So that's how it is. All right. I thought it was just some bullying thing like school. Children. The berserker laughed, and pulled Dana into a side-armed hug that made her instantly begin to sweat from the heat. You're funny. No, we're not quite that immature. Just as she said that, a young immortal who looked like a teen girl, but who was likely a juvenile dragon, strutted in with her hips swaying in exaggerated fashion, and slapped a drink out of the hand of one of the demons at what Dana could only call the nerd's table. Well, most of us are not quite that immature. Did I mention that the clan has a grade school for the trueborn children? Dana sighed as Kara cackled with laughter in her mind. The Chaos Badger was living for this opportunity. Old immortals, desperate social climbers, and teenage dragon angst all in one place? Only Opal could write a plot with more twists than that. I will ready the clones. This is going to make an excellent daytime drama. Opal. Agreed. Chapter 1491 Cafeteria Food. The food was incredible, made by someone with the mystic cooking ability, and once they began to relax a little, the other immortals in the Dragon God Followers clique began to chat amiably. You know, with your fighting skills, we should bring you to the clan's training grounds. They're a legendary separate space made by a demigod for us to train in. The wilderness is properly immortal-sized, 1,000 kilometers across, so there's room to hunt. Plus, you should have clan credits, right? Argoth asked. Carl shrugged. Nobody mentioned credits. I probably should have asked about that. But I have some crafting skills, and I can likely make something that will earn credits in a merchant clan. Ooh, a self-funding immortal. Now that is rare. You know, for as long as we live, you would think that there would be more, but everyone focuses on getting stronger, not on building wealth. There are a surprisingly high number of impoverished immortals. The werewolf laughed. Jean shrugged. He's not wrong. Everything that we get, we put into our cultivation. So it's actually rare for most immortals to have anything of real value, beyond their immediate needs. The Supremes, they're different. They tend to be fabulously wealthy, as they're the top of most immortal worlds, and they're the source of most of the supplies. You are system users, so you're not too concerned about it. But those who grow naturally without a system need all sorts of resources to help them grow. System users need some resources as well, but not nearly on the same level. Dana cast Carl a glance that the dragon didn't miss. Could they have a source of immortal rank magical resources? That would make them very popular. If you don't have credits, but you do have resources, you can take them to the clan supply house. They will trade them for either other resources or clan credits. If you want to lead a team into the trial grounds, you'll need credits. Jean explained. Carl nodded. We will head over there in a day or two, once we've settled into our room. It's been an eventful few days, and I'm not one who likes to constantly change surroundings. I like the familiarity. I will leave you to it, then. Come find me if you encounter any issues. I might not be on the Ascendant top rankings, but I've been around a long time. Jean agreed. Nyan and Jeff both rose when Carl and Dana did, and bowed to the table, while Dana waved a cheerful farewell to the mostly silent group. Halfway down the hallway, Jeff waved goodbye and silently entered his room, while Nyan followed them right to their door, expectantly waiting for them to open the door. Dana could see that the cat was actually quite clingy, and hated to be alone. But it looked like she wasn't actually good at building long-term allies, as she didn't seem to have any sort of clique or close social circle of her own. Whether that was a personality or power level issue wasn't clear. But Dana knew that Lotus would love her, and the cat was much more open than most others were. That would help them learn about this place before they got themselves into real trouble. Why don't you come in while we get settled? Tell us a bit about the rooms. The elder said that the rooms are a safe space, so that should mean that there is something special about them, right? Dana asked. Oh, they're exceptional. They have a supreme ranked anti-intruder charm on them so that nobody can see in or enter without permission. You have to actually open the door and let them in, unless they have the token of an elder. But even the elders can't see inside until they open the door. Oh, that is proper security. How often do the elders come to check on you? Do they do regular wellness checks, some routine intended to ensure that your progression is coming along well? Dana asked. Nyan giggled. No, if they want to see me, they use telepathy to call me to them. The elders have a token that lets them talk to people in their vicinity, so there is no need to bother coming all the way into the back dorms just to see. I've seen them twice this year, and once was when they brought you too. Neither one involved them coming into my room. That's wonderful. For a married couple, you know how it can be. Privacy is important when you want to be alone, and in a compound full of immortals, you never know if you're going to find any privacy at all. Nyan nodded happily. The rooms are nice too. There is this front room and then a big bedroom with lots of room for activities, and then a meditation chamber which is extra warded with a mana gathering array built into it. Then the tub. Oh, you got the really good tub, this is huge. And it has jets? I'm so envious. I just got a basic tub with the charms to keep the water hot. Yours has a whole massage and circulation thing going on. I wonder if someone added that themselves? These rooms usually only stay with the same person for a decade or two, in my experience. I've been here for a while, and Jeff has been here longer. But the new immortals have too many accidents, and they're often targeted for poaching by the other clans. Dana peeked into each of the rooms as Nyan gave the tour, and Carl took the time to make sure that someone on the Beast team had given proper updates to everyone inside of the tiny world so that they knew what was going on. That seemed like it might be important, as he had taken the space to another world with him. A small oversight on his part. Don't worry, Matilda was already here to grab the extra dragons. And she explained most of what is going on. The clan leader is a friend of hers, so she says that it should be fine while you adjust. Then there was something about not doing a thing, but I wasn't paying attention. Kara explained. We were supposed to tell Carl not to go outside the clan until he had an immortal spirit. Something about people wanting to kidnap him? Hawk replied, turning confused at the end. Kidnapping the Dana mage to blackmail him. Tion corrected helpfully. Right, that was it. Don't go outside until you have an immortal spirit, so that they don't try to kidnap the Dana mage to capture you. Carl couldn't see how that was related to his immortal spirit's growth status. But both Ray and Thor were sleeping, and neither Kara nor Remy had been paying attention. Chapter 1492, The Creeping Chaos. While the others were explaining what Matilda had told them, Carl noticed that Kara was in the process of sneaking away. She had opened a portal from the tiny world to the chaos plane, and vanished through with an assortment of loot from her space. That was new. She never took her loot out of her space unless she was giving gifts. Carl, I need to go back to the Lightning Mountain. Hawk insisted. Joe? Ready to face tribulation? Carl asked. I need to release some old power. Hawk agreed. Ray looked up from her web. Silly beasts, her goddess already recognized her innate status. There was no need for her to get struck by lightning to advance. She just had to finish brewing this bath. And she would be ready. Fermented immortal octopus ichor with a dash of supreme seasoning and some titan blood was just right. But it took time. Nyan looked around the room in panic. I feel something moving in the chaos plane. We need to close the door. She rushed over and slammed the door, then locked it and looked around fearfully. It's still here. That's the Chaos Badger. It's fine. She's just gone to see a guy about a thing. That is not comforting. Dana laughed. You will have to get used to that with Carl. His idea of what is fine is not the same as most people. When you spend as long as he did being virtually indestructible, you forget about threat assessments. But if it is her that you're feeling, then it's not a real problem. She's just stretching her legs, and the chaos plane is her home turf. Plus, Dana could read Kara's thoughts, and the badger was making a 5-dimensional monument to something that really shouldn't exist in any reality. Just trying to comprehend her thoughts was giving Dana a headache, but it was giving Carl insights into chaos. Many things were possible that didn't seem to be until the influence of the chaos plane was factored in. Then, they became both impossible and highly probable at the same time. But more than just giving him insights into the fundamental rule, it was also giving Carl insights into how to rearrange his power matrix without greatly increasing the difficulty of creating new points. If he moved some of them to the 5th dimension, then cloned them all into the 4th dimension where time was malleable, he could double the number of points in his power matrix while actually decreasing the difficulty. So, Nyan, what does everyone do for fun here? Carl asked, distracting the cat from her panic about Kara playing in the chaos plane. They're really quite boring. Most of them just study and practice or talk about studying and practicing. Then they want to know how to get money for more resources, and where they could find the resources they would like to buy. You two seem like you'll be more fun than that. At least you've got a relationship, and you didn't devote your life to the path of the virgin cultivator. Dana laughed. Well, we do a lot of studying and crafting and such, but there is more to life than just studying. Nyan nodded eagerly. Did you know that there are some that don't even eat at the cafeteria because they think that the luxury of decent food is too much distraction from their path? How can you think that immortality is worth it when you live like that? Before Dana could answer, the disruption in the chaos plane caused them all to freeze. Whatever Kara was doing in the chaos plane was so extreme that it was causing ripples in the immortal worlds, and none of them knew if they extended beyond this room. If she was causing disruptions in the entire clan compound, countless people were going to be very unhappy with her. But nobody came pounding on their door, and despite Nyan going to hide under the table, nothing in the room actually moved. It just felt like reality warped a little. Dozens of times a second, for 10 minutes. Then, it stopped and Kara came out of the chaos plane, looking inordinately pleased with herself. She was immortal, that much was clear. But that was not why she was looking proud of herself. Her advancement ritual had managed to tie a portion of her mind to the 4th dimension, allowing her to watch the flow of time at will. I thought that would be Opal's special skill. Dana noted dryly. Kara mentally shrugged. It helps with the visions. I can see so much more now. I saw Matilda doing it and I finally figured out how. The cat is about to start crying, by the way. Dana pulled Nyan out from under the table and hugged the cat girl, who immediately began to purr. It's fine, the issue is resolved. Nyan, meet Kara. Kara. This is Nyan. She volunteered to show us around the clan. Kara shifted into humanoid form before Nyan turned around, so what the cat saw was not a chaos badger, but a small girl with a white stripe in her black hair over a scarred face, wearing cargo pants that had been turned into overalls for additional storage with a tank top underneath. No, it was a sleeveless hoodie, as it had a pocket in the front. But the hood was full of cupcakes. You're a lot to take in. Thank you. Would you like a cupcake? They're freshly baked by the nature priestess. Nyan instinctively took the cake, then fumbled with it as the entire thing was hot, except the top, which had been frozen so they could apply icing right away. How did you make cupcakes evil? What is this trickery? Oh, never mind. The temperature balances out after a couple of seconds. Kara nodded. They're quite good. Would you like to take a walk around the compound? These two need a bit of alone time to get settled in. Nyan smiled. Sure. Where is your room? I share this one. Don't worry about it. I'm bonded to Carl, so I have a separate space to rest in. Now, how about we go see the flower gardens? Dana put her foot against the door. You might not have been paying attention at the time, but Matilda said no outdoor chaos and shenanigans until we've got our immortal spirits stabilized and fully formed. Kara sighed, and then took out a pot of tea. In that case, let's have a snack here, Nyan. They can go to the bedroom. My friend Opal has some questions for you. Is the rumor that you also took on 3 men in the arena true? Dana bonked the badger on the head and gave the butterfly a mental warning. To behave. All right, change of topics. Fashion. Sister Ray will join us soon, and she's going to want to know how everyone here likes to dress. Chapter 1493 Reorganized Matrix. While Kara and Nyan discussed fashion for Ray's benefit, Carl sat down on what passed for a sofa, but more closely resembled a huge beanbag chair. He would take this opportunity to rework his power matrix while the thoughts were still fresh in his mind, and while everyone else was distracted. Technically, Dana wasn't distracted yet, but when she heard all the things that Ray was planning to dress her up in, she definitely would be. It happened every time. The first thing that he had to do was to reorganize the existing positions of his formation so that it made sense from a fifth-dimensional perspective. That was going to be interesting. All that he had to go on was how Kara appeared, now that her expanded senses had improved Carl's own. However, he had only been able to perceive the difference for a few minutes. What he needed was another dragon. Well, he had a bunch in the tiny world, though they weren't chaos dragons. The closest that he could get was to try to blend Naksha's presence with Kara's, but while envisioning Matilda's dragon form. It took more work than he expected, but when he finished, the mana flow from the immortal world was as good or slightly better than it had been. That should be a sign that he got it right, or close to it. If he happened to meet another chaos dragon, he would be sure to memorize their appearance so that he could tweak the positions. But at this point it was more about his own visualization of the power matrix, as it related to his understanding of the fundamental rules, than the actual appearance. A few more tweaks attuned the matrix more closely to both the mana manipulation and chaos rules, and Carl felt the mana flowing into him improve exponentially. The change had revealed a hidden flaw in his original matrix. It was like a flat drawing of a dragon, missing a basic dimension. Now that he had addressed the issue, it was beginning to flow as usual. Then, he focused on Kara's understanding of the fourth dimension and duplicated the points. They seemed to fall right into place, existing in the past, present, and future all at the same time, as if it were only natural. Strangely, that didn't appear to change his mana regeneration rate at all, but it was having a profound effect on the mana quality he got after filtering the power through the matrix. It was still immortal power, but somehow more pure and less restrictive. It responded exactly how he wanted it to without the need to put the same effort into forming the skill through the system. Eternal Lightning became as natural as breathing, nearly a passive skill that refreshed itself from his mana pool, but still active in the back of his mind and able to be adjusted, unlike passive skills that were active all the time. The entire process had been deceptively easy, leaving Carl to wonder if this was how things were supposed to be at the immortal rank. Sorry. I should have warned you when the adjustment was made. I hope that I didn't interrupt anything major. Dana shook her head. No, just an argument about formal wear. Letting Kara advance first was a mistake. Kara's grin always looked a bit evil with the scars on her face, but she was definitely trying to look innocent at the moment. Trying and failing. Carl shrugged. I'm sure it'll be fine. If Kara would wear it in public, it shouldn't be too terrible. Nyan laughed, and Dana shook her head. Did you finish your power matrix realignment? She asked, changing the topic. I did. It's much better now. Mana flows more smoothly, and the refinement level of the immortal energy is better. The impurities in it are mostly gone now, and I don't have nearly as many issues activating skills with the change in power. Carl explained the details with a directed thought, unwilling to spill all the details in front of Nyan, no matter how friendly the cat girl was. You should sleep or meditate, possibly unpack? I don't see luggage or storage rings, but that doesn't mean much. I will return to my room and come get you in the morning for breakfast to help you get used to the routine here. Nyan insisted suddenly, jumping to her feet as if she had just remembered something. All right, we will see you soon. That would also give Carl the chance to check on how Hawk was doing, as he hadn't dared to keep a portal open from the tiny world back home when there was another immortal in the room. She might put on an innocent and clueless front, but nobody made it to immortality without at least stepping on a few bodies. Once the door was closed and locked behind her, Carl immediately extended his senses to make sure that nobody was looking in on them, then opened a small viewing portal back to the Tribulation Mountains, where Hawk had gone to undergo his trial. The storm was already forming around him, but Hawk had filled the whole area with fire, overwhelming the storm and constantly burning away the clouds. Dana's amusement at the fact that Hawk had actually altered his immortal tribulation to eliminate the chance that it would rain on him flowed through the mental link, and Remy began making her own plans to set the stage for her advancement. If Hawk got to set up a little piece of the fire elemental plane for his tribulation, she could make her own Naga swamp scene. But her thoughts gave Hawk a great idea. He didn't know how to portal, but Kara did, and he knew where the plane of fire was. He didn't want to advance there. He was a dark flame phoenix, not a pure fire elemental being. But opening a portal would let much more element-rich mana flow into the region and warm it up enough that he shouldn't have to deal with any more clouds. Chapter 1494. She forgot. The first bolt of lightning shook all the immortals on the Dragon Isles out of a sound slumber. They hadn't sensed anyone reaching tribulation on the continents, but there was definitely one beginning, and they hadn't sensed an intrusion from any of their monitored worlds. That was only natural, as Carl's tiny world had been created in Drod, so it still felt like part of their own world, even as the mana in it had begun to change and adapt to the immortal world where Carl was now living. Azof was the first to react, teleporting himself through a microscopic portal to oversee the advancement. Oh, it's you. I thought that you left with Carl? Never mind. Finish what you are doing, and I will keep watch. Hawk nodded in satisfaction. That immortal wasn't all bad. Even if he didn't have wings. The first strikes of the tribulation lightning crashed into Hawk's, flaming body barrier, and the bird keened in joy as he felt the power surge into him. Like most beasts, he had a much easier time advancing than humans, but unlike most, he had undergone multiple evolutions to reach immortality, and he had to purge some of the remaining mortal energy from his body. It wouldn't advance without it, even though he had so thoroughly remade himself in the flames of the dungeon during his last advancement. The lightning struck again, burning away the lingering mortal world energy, as Hawk drew in the residual power of tribulation to replace it. The more power that he could channel into his barrier, the faster that the energy was replaced, and Hawk briefly bemoaned the fact that he was so efficient with his mana use after a lifetime of practice. If he hadn't put so much effort into punishing water magic, could he have finished this whole tribulation faster? Did the difference in time even matter? Were there mice in the immortal worlds? Those were the important questions that were plaguing his mind as the lightning struck again and again, remaking his power into that of a true immortal. The fourth and fifth volleys came nearly on top of each other, the two blending almost seamlessly as the dark flame phoenix transformed and expanded, his body enlarging as Hawk adapted to immortality. Now, he was a truly prodigious 30 meters in wingspan, nearly large enough to compete with the dragons for a size competition. But he was still much more delicate and agile than the massive reptiles, and he was certain that his air speed superiority would not be compromised. Unlike Karl's advancement, only Azoth had come to cheer Hawk on, but that was because the immortal had locked down the area, warning everyone else away from the advancement of an immortal beast on their world. The immortals all knew about Karl's team, and assumed that this was the first of them to reach immortality, as no others had come back for a tribulation. It was too soon for Karl to return, even if it was just for a visit. His immortal spirit wasn't stable and formed yet, which would leave him vulnerable to attacks by immortal realm cultivators. The spirit was a sort of anchor point for immortality. The initial stages of immortal spirit formation didn't do much to increase your maximum power. What they did was to massively decrease the amount of energy needed to perform actions and use skills. With a fully formed immortal spirit, they would have far fewer fears of running out of mana unless they were using their strongest attacks repeatedly. It was when they started to transform the spirit and become a void rank immortal that their power truly began to progress. But beyond the mana cost reduction, the immortal spirit also protected against soul-based attacks and lingering damage to the essence. It separated the mortal soul from the immortal with a layer of immortal essence, and imbued the very core of the immortal with a bit of power that they had never been capable of attaining before. Until it was stable, attacks that targeted mortality like instant death could still target them by ending their lifespan. Or skills like Decrepify and Instant Aging could be used on an immortal to effectively cripple them for life in an ancient body. Once the immortal spirit was formed, an immortal would heal from those attacks naturally. Hawk wasn't there yet, but he understood the process instinctively, and he would start on the work soon. He was done with the lightning part, and the Azoth immortal was putting out the fires on the mountain where his power had scattered under the lightning barrage so he could go back to his perch and nap. Now, advancing was exhausting when it involved getting hit by lightning. Azoth frowned as Hawk simply vanished back through the portal Karl was using to watch. Karl waved at him as the immortal turned to see where Hawk had gone, in case there was going to be an immortal rank bird wandering around the Dragon Isles as his power adjusted. Inside Karl's space, there was no threat to others, so Azoth just waved back and let Karl close the portal before it caught anyone's attention on the immortal world. They might not keep a close eye on everything that happened, because of the pure volume of phenomenon, but a sustained portal to another world, especially one in the mortal realms, would cause someone to investigate eventually. Well, that's two of us now. So, when are Brother Tion and Brother Thor going to advance? We already know that Sister Ray is going to be soon, and Sister Remy is busy, Leo asked. Opal's panic briefly concerned the others. She had just realized that she put so much focus on getting more data for her film collections that she had forgotten about growing her own power. She was doing well with her fundamental rule of illusions, but her body still wasn't at the peak of mythic rank. The others might advance right away, but she was going to need weeks, maybe months, to catch up, even with this improved energy in her space. Chapter 1495. Too early. The next morning came fast in the immortal world, and Karl briefly wondered if there was a difference in the length of the days, only to have his system interface cheerfully inform him that it was currently 5:30 in the morning, and someone was knocking on their door. If that's Nyan, I am going to cover her in glitter and throw her to Lotus and Button, Karl complained as he got out of bed. Ophelia will murder you if you get them covered in glitter. Karl dressed in a suit of black robes that Ray had made, then frowned at his human hands, not used to seeing them after so much time in cat demon form. Also, he was short. Well, not short by human standards, he was still a bit over 180 centimeters tall. But he was a full 10 centimeters shorter than he was used to being. He briefly considered using Behemoth to adjust his size, but gave up and left his size in its natural state. When he swung the door open, Nyan was waiting outside, still in her pajamas. Good morning. The breakfast buffet is open, and it's best to go early so that they don't sell out of the good stuff before we get there. They hate having leftovers, so they stopped refilling it later in the morning. Behind him, Dana laughed at the cat girl's wild hair and flannel pajamas. She was clearly too excited about getting here for breakfast. All right, give me 30 seconds to get ready and I will join you. Come in, no need to wait in the hallway. Kara straightened herself and adjusted her hair into a 3-row braid, separating the white from the black sections, then came out to join them. So what do they have for breakfast? Something good? Rare plant immortal resources? Baked treats? She asked. Mostly not immortal ranked? It's just breakfast, not some special feast. But it's really good. Kara shrugged. That's fine. We can go out and make new friends, and that's enough for day 2. Nyan looked at the small round ears on the badger's head, and began to panic about how she could tell Kara that half the clan would demand that she be thrown out, while most of the others would be afraid to let her near them once they realized that she was a chaos badger, not a beastkin. However, if she didn't tell them, they wouldn't know, right? They could all go for breakfast, explore the clan compound, and then she could see what the new immortals did for training. Maybe it would help her, since they also had an uncommon system. Most of the immortals in this world were either from here or from a half-dozen powerful mortal worlds that generated regular immortal advancements. The only other one from her world was the moron, and his mind was so cracked that he wasn't a lot of help. The fact that he had managed to get himself to immortality was some sort of miracle, she assumed. There was no way that natural selection should have allowed him to live long enough to gain power. Surprisingly, there were actually people in the dining hall when they arrived. Nyan usually went this early because she was the only one there, and the buffet dishes were completely full with all the options available. Fortunately, they were still restocking everything as it was selected, so she didn't miss out on anything. We thought that the cat might wake you all up bright and early. Wait, were there always 3 of you? A large wrath demon asked. Kara frowned at him. Of course. New immortals don't just appear out of thin air. The demon frowned back. His memory should be better than that, especially when it came to duels. He never forgot a duel. You didn't duel yesterday, he insisted. Nobody asked me. I'm quite unobtrusive when I want to be. The wrath demon smiled. Then I will duel you today. Do you have a system? Or are you growing naturally? All natural, baby. A bit of immortality ain't nothing compared to this potential. Kara insisted with an overdone sweet-sounding accent that Carl didn't recognize. The demon thumped the seat beside him. Bring your people to eat. We will spar after we eat. No hiding from the fun parts today. Carl laughed at the concerned look on Nyan's face. Don't worry about Kara. Nobody willingly duels her twice, so she must be pretty good at it. Good at it was a matter of interpretation. She had a habit of biting at tender bits and punching people in the dick. Of course, nobody tried to duel her twice. She was looking forward to it today. She was going to get to test out her new strength and try to understand why she didn't get an over-ranked skill this advancement. Had she finally reached her potential? The point where her body and her skills were coming into balance should be near to adulthood. Carl grabbed a bit of everything that looked good, while Kara stacked pastries around a mountain of scrambled eggs covered in hot sauce and what he hoped was mayonnaise. Dana initially just picked a few things that she wanted to try, then Nyan loaded small samples of everything else that she liked onto the plate for Dana to try. The wrath demon and his friends gave her matching bemused smiles. It was a side effect of being a fox. You made friends even if you didn't want to. Tion thought that it was a good sign. If everyone treated Dana that well, then they should also treat him well when he advanced. He wasn't quite right. She was a full-grown woman. He was a 3-kilo pure white fox. Tion was much more likely to be treated as a fluffy pet than a new friend, though he was unlikely to be able to tell the difference. Friendly meant friend in his brain. Chapter 1496. Bring Kara to breakfast. The dining hall began to fill fast 15 minutes after they arrived, and they were attracting a lot of attention, sitting with the table full of wrath demons. Even in a world where the powerful ruled, the wrath demons were among the most violent adherents of the might makes right philosophy. The 2 new arrivals had proven themselves well in the duel, but it normally took much more than that to impress the demons. That led many to suspect that Carl and Dana had a secret, either about their origin or about their skills. There had to be something that impressed the demons. Nobody was paying any attention to Kara, whose form made her look like a middle school student. There were plenty of immortal children in the clan, but they weren't real immortals in a combat power sense. They had an unlimited lifespan, but they didn't have the power to back it up, and they had to be protected by the clan so that they were not abducted and brainwashed to work for another clan. But her breakfast, what was that? It was making people's eyes water from 2 tables away, just radiating spice from whatever she had put on the egg mountain. She was eating it while humming a happy song. The hot sauce was something that the wrath demons loved, made from a magma chili, combining fire magic with spice for a uniquely hot sauce. But most of them didn't use it as a primary flavor for eggs. As soon as her plate was empty, the big demon started to get an excited look in his eyes. He could tell that she was not one of the children from the academy. He knew all of them already. He was their combat skills trainer. Which meant that this was an actual teen immortal, ascended from whatever world had proven capable of fostering such a prodigy. He did suspect that she might actually be a form of divine beast, reaching immortality before adulthood. But she looked like she had seen some stuff, not one of those soft and worthless students. All right, let's go to the training grounds. I will assess your level, and if you need remedial lessons, I will get you enrolled in classes. Kara's smile made him immediately wish to retract that statement. Kara reached up and grabbed his hand to drag him out to the sparring arena, and the other wrath demons began to laugh. The tiny one was either brave or stupid, and they were 100% on board with her brand of crazy. The match goes to first blood. That is standard for the clan's rules on sparring with children. The demon insisted. That's a bit offensive. Do they think that I can't take a hit? He chuckled and shrugged. I've said the same thing, but rules are rules. That's what happens when the humans are left in charge. They like to coddle their children in the strangest ways, while testing them in others. Carl adjusted his aura so it was at about half output, close to matching that of the others in the area. That seemed like the best option, but he quickly noticed that he was getting fearful looks from many of the immortals. Nyan looked up at him. I get it now. Why you suppress your aura. I was serving an evil cultivator sect when I first arrived in this world, and most of them didn't have an aura that could compare to yours. How did you end up with someone as lovely as Miss Dana with an aura like that? Hers is so pure and innocent, highly huggable. The other immortals nodded in agreement. Dana's aura was more suited to a divine cultivation sect, where they focused on purity and good deeds to build karma. But Carl felt like a leashed predator picking out a meal when he looked at you. The wrath demons decided that they liked him. The one in the ring with Kara didn't notice, he was too busy trying to analyze his opponent. He had a skill for it, and he could normally read the system information of most of the children, no matter where they came from, but Kara's information all came up either corrupted or constantly changing. After a moment, he gave up on it, and waited for their referee to start the match. One of the ascendant immortals hopped up on the judge's elevated chair, and blew the whistle, beginning the match. The wrath demon activated a fire barrier and swung his axe, aiming at Kara. But she vanished behind a black, disintegrate barrier, and then launched at his face like a missile. With both hands on the axe, he couldn't grab her in time. He only managed to block her momentum, but Kara wouldn't let that stop her. She used his axe as leverage to throw herself on his face and grab his beard to feed him a flurry of punches. The demons in the crowd laughed at the insane girl. Of all the things that had happened to the combat instructor in the past century, having a small girl hang off his beard to punch his face was a new one. He roared and took one hand off his axe, but when he grabbed Kara, she seemed to go boneless, twisting in his hand and producing a pair of daggers to attack his forearm. The badger was hurled to the ground, and rolled to her feet with a pleased grin on her scarred face, while the demon spit out a mouthful of blood. He was not treating her like a human child anymore. That was a wild animal in human form. Kara was impressed. It only took him one exchange to figure it out, and he had stopped trying to be gentle with her. The axe streaked past Kara's barrier as she dodged again, and then a fire skill exploded all around her as she charged inside his guard again. For a moment, the pair looked evenly matched. Then Kara was sent flying again, overwhelmed by the power of her opponent. The combat instructor smiled as she reached the top of the arc. Few immortals would be able to adjust their trajectory fast enough to dodge his next attack. Then, Kara transformed back to a chaos badger, and her winged form seemed to stop dead in the air, only to have 100 chaos blast attacks explode around his body, tearing at the flames of his barrier. Kara grabbed his axe and clawed at his hand, stopping the attack. Misunderstanding her intentions, he dropped the axe and coated a fist in fire to crush the agile badger. However, Kara dropped to the ground and transformed back to humanoid, so she could run around in celebration with his axe in her hands. It was a really nice one, and he called it back. No fun. Shit, it's a chaos badger. Who's got the wagers? We need a new category. I've got 5 spirit element stones that says he gives up in frustration. One of the immortals shouted. I've got an epic amulet that says she licks him during the fight. Carl joked. No betting on that. She already did it when she was stealing his axe. Chapter 1497 Hard to Catch. Carl laughed as the two combatants clashed over and over, with the demon trying to catch Kara so that she would stop escaping from his axe strikes. He couldn't understand how she kept managing it. Part of it was that Kara was activating haste from Carl's repertoire of class skills. But most of it was just that the badger knew how to teleport, but only used it a few centimeters at a time, so everyone knew that she was simply dodging attacks. It's really hard to make him bleed, Kara complained. He's a wrath demon. Of course, it's difficult to make him bleed. You should have targeted his upper arm, where there's no armor. You could have landed a solid hit. The two went at it for a while, with the combat instructor holding back his power level a little to test Kara's skills and not just her pure power level. He'd already caught on to her tricks, and he was adjusting his attacks for the most likely directions that she would evade, which was causing Kara to take more hits, though she had managed to land a few of her own. Then, a slight shift in weight as the demon feinted to the right tricked Kara, and she moved to parry the attack, only to be caught in a massive hand. Her arms were pinned at her side, and she wriggled furiously, then licked his hand, which made the combat instructor laugh. "Fine, you win," she admitted. "You are a most excellent opponent. If I hadn't spent centuries training students, you likely would have managed to frustrate me to death." "Kara, Ameldor." The crowd cheered and jeered as they settled their wagers, and a few more children came out to see what was going on. They had heard from others that there was a girl challenging the combat instructor, and they wanted to know who was that brave. But they didn't know this one. She was clearly a young immortal years from adulthood. But she was new, and her power level was much higher than any of theirs. "Here we go. Kara is going to cause chaos with the school children." Remy laughed as the kids waited nearby for the instructor to be finished talking to Kara. Jean, the divine fire dragon who was the head of security force training, came over to pat Ameldor on the shoulder. "Well, friend, it looks like we've both met a new conundrum." Ameldor nodded. "Conundrum indeed. She's certainly of the age to be with the other students. But I wouldn't dare ask the teachers to deal with that. On the other hand, it might be against clan rules to allow a child to remain uneducated within the clan compound. And while she's here, the security force will have to be extra alert for pranks, traps, and surprise events." Jean agreed. Hawk transformed into a demon crow using Unholy Beast transformation, which allowed him to sit on Carl's shoulder to watch the show in person, instead of from his space. "There's another one? Where are the immortal beasts coming from?" Jean complained. "Sorry, they're my bonded partners. Jean, meet Hawk the Dark Flame Phoenix." His full form was inconvenient for spectating, so he reduced it with a transformation. "Will there be more?" Carl smiled. "Oh, there are more. They're just adjusting to the new environment at the moment and not ready to socialize. Some of them aren't a major concern for others, but I will ask the predatory ones to behave." That also wasn't horribly comforting. "All right, as a resident of the clan, I will trust your judgment, and ask that you take responsibility for keeping your beasts under control. If that's even possible." Jean stared pointedly at Kara, who laughed and brought out a cupcake for him. Thanks? Is it custom where you come from to have dessert after breakfast?" Kara just laughed. "No, I simply like cupcakes." Jean juggled the cupcake in his hand for a second as the temperature balanced, and Nyan frowned. She had nearly panicked when Kara handed her those strange snacks, but the dragon figured it out right away. What she didn't know was that the trick of freezing the top was actually common with green dragons, who got impatient for their dessert to be ready. So he had experienced it many times before. They also liked making them with hot liquid chocolate in the middle and ice cream on top. Keeping them in your inventory kept them in the same state you received them, so you still had to let them cool before eating if you didn't want to use a plate and cutlery. "Can you show me that escape technique?" one of the boys asked Kara, ignoring the look that Ameldor was giving him. "Oh sure. The basics are actually very simple. Do you have a training weapon?" Kara took out a police baton, and the student gave her a strange look. That was a mythic rank stun baton. In what world did it count as a good stick for demonstrations? Ameldor smiled. Perhaps her brand of chaos might make his life easier. The kids would learn fast if she started to shock them when they failed. The headmaster wouldn't let him do that. "All right, you attack me and I will show you the skill a bit slower than I did against the big boss, and then you can try," Kara explained. The boy nodded eagerly, and took a swing at her with a blunted training sword. Kara swayed, lifted one foot to step in the air, and then kicked the other to the side, in what looked like a graceful ballet dance, if her hands weren't remaining in a combat-ready stance. She had shifted nearly a meter to the side, but she was using the ability of an immortal to fly to move her body. The movement of her legs was only to get her body out of the way of the blade. It wasn't part of the movement skill. It also wasn't how she had done it during the last fight at all. She was tricking the boy into dancing in combat. "Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.